Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So carrying on with the Team Associated Rc10 CC build, we got up to page or part 10, but it's a bit weird how this manual's labelled. So we're going to be starting from bag D, which is also on page 10, but I think it goes back to step 1 now, so who knows. But anyway, carrying on from bag D, or step 11 or whatever step it is, and let's bring in for a close-up look and see how we get on with the rest of this build. Right, so we're starting with one of the shock towers. I think this is the rear bulkhead we're going to be assembling. So first off, it's telling us we need 2 of these screws, and it tells you that they are 3/4 of an inch, which is roughly 19-20 mil. And looking at this, I think this is another part where they possibly not drilled the holes out enough, because these are really stiff to put in. I thought they might push through because there is a locking nut used on the back of these, but that is really tight. So this is going to be another one of the just screw these down really carefully, because it's going to start generating quite a bit of heat, and you don't want to be either shearing the head off these screws or shattering your glass fibre. So if you try and go too quick with this, there's probably a chance that it will break somewhere. So that's the first one screwed in. So I'll quickly jump across and I'll get this second one screwed in, and then we can carry on. Right, so once we've got these on, we should be fine to use the thread lock as it suggests. Bit confusing on the instructions. It shows you before you thread these in to put thread lock on, but I think if you do that, you're just going to get problems. So you just want a tiny bit of thread lock just on the back of these. Once you've got the thread lock on, we're then going to screw these down. And I mean, it's not like these RCs, the clear ones, are designed to run anyway, so we're not going to have to go crazy tightening any of these bits up. Let's see if we can find out what size these are. So it looks like for this one, these are a 1/4 inch again. So I would just nip them up, don't over tighten them. And because they're now telling us it's so important to make sure we don't get any thread lock come into contact with any of the clear plastics, I would just make sure it's all wiped off as much as you can, because we don't want to risk anything else shattering. So that is that piece done. So let's move on. So moving along, we've got our little ball studs and the main bulkhead piece. So we want one in that one. And for this, I'm using the 3/16 socket again. And again with these bits, do not over tighten these. You're definitely going to have problems with the plastic splitting if you do. They just want to be snugged down. So for me, I'm not even using the actual ratchet handle. I'm just going to screw these down by hand, and then as soon as you feel resistance or the bit slipping in your fingers, you know you've gone tight enough. They just want to touch the actual plastic. So now we've got them in, we can move on to the next part. Right, so attempting to move on, we've got a bunch of screws, and I will show you a quick picture of the manual where it tells us to use 3/8 and 5/16 screws to fasten this on, which we don't have any of them in the kit. None of these actually measure up to that. The 2 short ones I'm guessing are for the front bumper. The 4 that are the same length are the 1/2 inch ones, which do line up with a bit that we're going to get to later. I'm guessing the two longer ones are meant to be the 5/8 that go in from the sides, so that just leaves us with these 4 to get this on. But none of these actually line up with the measurements it gives you for the screws for this bit. So we're just going to have to YOLO it at this point. Because, yeah, we don't really have much choice, because none of the screws are actually the sizes that it tells you in the manual. Now, I'm wondering if the online manual has been updated and these have also been corrected. But looking at this, I think all these are going to stick out the back way too far. But if I swap these with the 1/2" ones that it does say use in the top plate, they're screwing into holes that are blocked off. So if these are slightly longer, these will stick out the back of this, but they would hit the bottoms of the holes that are drilled in the next part. So let's get these screwed in and see how we go. So we got these 4 screws fastened down, and as you can see, they almost come to the end on here and barely stick through at the back, but they're the only screws that we've got as an option on this one. But that's what we should be looking at. Don't worry, in the instructions it shows you this part but without these fitted. So obviously on the CC these come fitted, so yet another part that is a bit misleading or incorrect on the manual. So let's move on and see what else we've got. So for this next step, we're going to be fastening the bulkhead down to the chassis. You want these 2 screws to line up with the side of the actual chassis itself. And then we're just going to flip it over. And we're going to want 2 of these big screws. And they're going straight into the bottom. Now, I would take your time putting these in, because they're quite big screws and this clear plastic can be quite brittle. So I'll get these 2 screwed in and see what else we've got. Right, so that is the bulkhead screwed on. Next, we've just got to get these 2 screws, one from either side. And these are quite long screws going into this plastic. So again, I mean, I wouldn't use an electric driver on any part of this RC, because I think it's just going to spin them up and make them too hot. But just take your time, screw them in nice and steady, and hopefully these don't bottom out on that plastic and shatter it. So I'll get them screwed in and see how we go. Right, so we have got the 2 screws in all the way and no issues with them. I would not attempt to put them in with an electric driver, because I'm pretty sure that you would shear something off. So our next stop is to get 4 of these big chunky screws, and we're going to be fastening our sort of diff, motor plate and everything to the bottom. And again with these, I'd just take my time screwing these in. You can use a 2.5mm X driver for these, which I will be doing, and you just want to screw these down nice and slowly so you're not building up too much heat and resistance in the plastic. And I'd get all 4 started first and then just slowly snug them down. And again, don't try and over tighten it, because they're it's certainly a little bit brittle, this clear plastic. So I'll get all 4 of these screwed down and then see what else we've got. Right, so we have our rear end all fitted to the chassis. No disasters so far. It looks like the suggestion I made with the screws looks about right. These don't quite bottom out in this. They barely stick through them, the 1/2" screws. So hopefully we're sort of on the right tracks here. Now for this next part, we're moving around to the back, and then we've got to get this and fit one of our tapered screws, but this isn't drilled. It's not tapered on either side, so I'm guessing we just stick this in and kind of YOLO it. So let's get this tightened down. It doesn't show you from the pictures which way round this body pin mount goes, so the only thing I can suggest is if we try it the same orientation as the front, so we have the pin going front to back, and just see how it fits. You can always just grab it and spin it a bit if you don't over tighten it. So once we've got that in place, we've then got to fit it to the actual car itself, and it says that this part goes towards the actual shock mount. So we've got to drop that in place. Then we're going to need 4 of these screws, and these are now the only ones that we've got left out of this bag. And luckily it is a clear build, so we will be able to see if any of these are going to bottom out. But the only options of 4 identical screws are either these 4 or the 4 shorter ones that I fastened the bulkhead down with. But if we tried using these in the bulkhead, they'd be stuck through quite a way on the back of it. So I'm hoping if we screw these in nice and carefully, we should be able to see if they are going to bottom out and cause a problem. But that's all 4 of them started, so I'll quickly screw them down and see how we get on. So we have this plate fully screwed down, and looks like we're right with these screws because they stop just shy of the bottoms of the holes that are drilled in the gearbox and bulkhead. So looks like we've got the right screws in the right place, even though they don't sort of add up with manual. Now next thing, we have to fasten 2 little screws, and it looks like these should go through the rear bumper into the actual motor mount. And these are the shortest screws that we had, and they're the only ones that do kind of line up. Now it is asking for thread lock on these, and because they are metal into metal and not near any of the plastic whatsoever, I think we should get away with thread locking them. So I'm just going to pop a little thread lock on both of them, and then basically we've got to try and screw these through and into the motor mount plate, but it doesn't look like these are even close to lining up. They certainly look like they're off at an angle to me, but let's see if we can get them to screw in. They may line up a little bit better as we tighten these up. It does look like it's closing the gap. They don't seem like they cross-threaded. And I really wouldn't over tighten these. So all I'm going to do is just nip them down. But it has closed the gap, or somewhat closed the gap. So that is all put together, and We haven't got anything broken on it, and it looks like we've got all the screws in the right place. Right, so that will bring us to the end of bag D. We're on page 11 now, and I think that's probably going to make a long enough video. So we'll wrap it up there. Right, so there we have it, up to page 11, which is part 4. So I'm just going to say pages 10 and 11. We do have it put together. The instruction manual is definitely wants rewriting. I will check the online manual to see if any of these bits have been corrected, but yeah, for me this is the second batch, and it's kind of, somebody okayed this. So somebody at Team Associated okayed this for release, and to say the first lot got all the body shells scratched, the second batch has bits missing and still tells you to put thread lock where you shouldn't use thread lock. And then we come to this part, and the measurements of the screws in the manual just nowhere even close to the screws that come in the kit. So yeah, maybe somebody should reevaluate their position at Team Associated, because up to now this is one of the worst manuals. It's coming pretty close to beating the Camtech manual that was a single page of paper, but at least that was 99% correct. This manual, if you built the RC to the manual, you couldn't build it because you ain't got the right screws just to get to this part, and you'd have thread lock shattering all your plastic all over the place. So yeah, but as an experience of the build, it's fascinating to see the way these older RCs were put together. I love the way you can see all the gears and everything through the clear plastic, and it's making a pretty solid little RC. As I said in the last video, don't think I'd have liked to be one of the teams trying to keep one of these up and running racing. Definitely got your hands full with it. But yeah, I love the design of it, and I really like the fact that it's a classic one that they brought out in clear. I do get that you're not meant to run these, but then again, you look at some of the designs and how sort of brittle they might be. Plus, even a re-release, would you still be able to get enough bits to repair it and run it? I think a Shelf Queen's probably the best way to go with this. Does make me wonder about the new clear one that they've released though, and why would anybody pay the money for a clear one that you can't use when you can still buy very cheaply the actual one because the new kit's been released. But yeah, definitely some strange things happen at Team Associated. But thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.